Let's take a look at Active Directory's group policy and some of its basic settings.
Let's take a look at group policy today. Now, group policy is, an enormous, wonderful, and very rich feature of Active Directory. It lets you do all kinds of things, from tweaking your security to installing or forbidding the installation of software automatically across the network. You can enforce users' desktops. There's almost no limitation to what you can accomplish with group policy. We're going to start out just looking at some of the settings. And so I have a few files that we're going to use, and there are several ways to get to the group policy management console, but one of my favorite ways is I like to use a Microsoft Management Console. Or, as a student of mine named Tessa affectionately called it once, a Mickey Mouse console. And it has hence been called that ever since. Group policy management we want to add. And we're just going to expand our forest here and our domains. And just a quick review. Now remember, normally by default, logon locally privileges are denied. But in this case, we went and edited the default domain policy, default domain controllers policy. And we had to change a couple of things. If we went under policies, and let's go under Windows settings, security settings, and local policies. And notice we had to grant local logon privileges. Now remember, if you don't do this, if you don't grant it, even though it's not explicitly denied as it is here, it's implicitly denied unless you choose to allow it. So I had to add the group domain users to the server so I could log on locally. Otherwise, it would prevent me from logging on as anyone except administrator. But we'll look at a few more features of that. But instead of the default domain controllers policy, what we want to edit, or what we'll configure now, is the default domain policy. So we're going to go here. I'm just going to right click. I'm selecting the group policy object in the GPMC. I'm going to say edit. And let's go look at a few of these policy settings. Okay. First thing we'll start out with is the password policy. And there are a couple of different configurations here. This is a good one to turn on. I have it turned off, but with it turned on, then any user account object that you create, you would have to create with a complex password. Remember, a complex password is a combination of uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and symbols, such as a colon or a semicolon or apostrophe or something. But a strong password or a complex password would be a combination of 3 of those 4 categories. Now in this case it's not defined, but we could define that, and that would improve our security a bit. I've got it set to disabled so I can use simple 4 character passwords just for the purpose of us doing our lab activities today. Minimum password length, again you can adjust that. Probably shouldn't go less than 7 characters for a good password. A minimum password age specifies how long users must wait before they can change their password. So here they can only change it once per day. A maximum password age, just a little over a month. And although this may be a bit inconvenient for some, it's actually a very good idea. Remember that the longer a user has a password, the more susceptible they are to a brute force or dictionary attack, and that password would be guessed. So that's a very good security feature. Enforcing password history. In this case, this setting here being defined would keep them from using the same password until they had chosen 24 other passwords. And that would take them a minimum of 24 days due to our minimum password age. So just some of those settings. Let's look at these. Account lockout duration and threshold. These are not defined, but if we were to define it, typically after 3 bad login attempts is a normal account lockout threshold. Notice these also have to be defined, and so we will. And then what this would do is, this would cut down a hacker's ability to attack, using a user's account, using brute force software that would go through all the possible combinations of characters in a password. Because after it tried it 3 times, it would lock it out for 30 minutes. and he'd have to wait a half an hour before he could come back and try again. So it would take him much longer to try to brute force a password that way than if there were no account lockout threshold. Now, as a disadvantage, users may get upset that they're locked out of their accounts. Let's look at Active Directory users and computers. I'm gonna go look at a locked out account, but they can always call you, and you can always unlock that account manually if you so choose. So let's go to, let's see, we'll go to Northern Hemisphere, we'll go to Enemy Agents, we'll go to Dr. Evil. And then if I went to the Account tab, if it was locked, this would be checked, and I could simply uncheck that, in this case, unlock account. And that is one way of mitigating, I guess, the annoyance if a user types in their password, for more than 3 invalid attempts. In this case, again, we won't define that, and that's going to also not define the 2 other policies to go with it. They're dependencies on the account lockout threshold. So that's password policy and account lockout, pretty important. Kerberos policy. Again, for Kerberos replication, everything's encrypted via Kerberos and Active Directory, and you can set a lot of those options here, some very useful options. Under local policies, here's an audit policy, and we'll take a look at that a little bit later. We want to set up or implement auditing. What we're interested in now, we want to do user rights assignment and look at some of these options here, and we'll take a look at some of the options in security options. So let's go through. Again, one of the ones now, this is defined in the default domain controllers policy, not the default domain policy. So even though it's not defined here, we do have permission to log on locally as anybody who's a member of domain users, that default global security group that people are added to. This is sort of deceptive because a lot of people don't see the default domain controllers policy GPO. They just see the default domain policy GPO. But realize that it's not defined here. It's defined in the default domain controllers group policy object, or GPO. So it doesn't necessarily have to be defined there. But let's define a few things, and we'll just kind of look at some of the options. Log on locally, which we've talked about. Allow or not allow logon through terminal services. Create a token object. Page fault, change the time zone, change the system time. You can see that there's an amazing level of control you can have over things across the network on all of your workstations and clients via group policy. There's a more explicit deny, unlike the implicit simply not allowing. Let's go down a little bit farther. We'll look at some more of these. Manage auditing and security log, system performance, restore files and directories, shut down the system. You can even choose to take away permission for them to click on shutdown. Take ownership of files. Remember we talked about that. We're talking about NTFS permissions, how you could take ownership of an object. And again, we can control that capability there. Let's look at security options. Just going down, a guest account status. Controlling what users can and cannot do. Shut down immediately. Let me spread this out a little bit here. Spread it out just a little bit. And allow unlock without having to log on for mounted devices. Allow to format and eject removable media. Again, if we wanted to define this policy, unless we added users here, they would be unable to eject things from the removable media drive, the CD drive. So that might be useful for keeping people from installing applications or software. In addition, you can also set up, you can control software installation through setting up signatures, and we'll talk about that later. So that's one option, kind of neat. CD-ROM access to locally logged on user only. You can just, I won't go through all of these because it would consume hours and hours of time, but I encourage you, get a copy of 2008, open up the Group Policy Management Console, and start looking at some of these. It will take a while just to familiarize yourself with some of the capabilities of group policy. It's a truly rich environment that lets you do just about anything that you can think of.
Let's continue exploring some of group policy's capabilities. Here we will define a logon message and enable auditing.
And you have to give Microsoft kudos or credit on this. This is one thing they truly did right. This is one of the things that really put them over the top against their competitors, is their implementation of group policy. And again, I'll just kind of scroll through a few and let you know if hopefully at the resolution that this ends up being at when it's compressed, you can still see some of these group policy settings. Okay, we're going to go back to user rights assignment. And sorry, security. Let me go back here. And here's what we want. Here, this will be an interesting one. Let's define a message text for users. We'll just add a logon message here. Unauthorized users and we'll just have a no-nonsense policy for dealing with trespassers. I'll go ahead and add that, and then here will be the title, and we'll add a warning message there. There you go. And that'll be for our users when they attempt to log on. And we have given logon locally privileges. So one more thing we want to do. Let's go ahead and set up auditing. We'll go ahead and talk about auditing now. Auditing is sort of a two-step process, but I need to set it up here to enable auditing of object access. And you can audit all kinds of things, log on, log off events. We'll just do that. We'll set that up for failure. Now, in addition to modifying group policy settings here, you also need to set up auditing on the DACL for an object. So we'll go do that. I'm going to go ahead and close this, and we'll come back, and there's just so much more to look at with group policy. Like I said, we could spend days covering group policy and talking about it. So we'll try to condense it. But one important thing to remember whenever you change group policy, you need to use a command, and I'll do it from a command prompt so you can see what goes on. You could just have typed in start, and then GP update, but in this case I'll do it from a command prompt. And that way if there are any problems, error messages or things, then we can see them. In GP update, what that does is it forces group policy to be replicated. Group policy is stored in the sysvol folder created when you run the Active Directory installation was your DC promo, and the ntds.did file is created. So they're stored there in sysvol, and they're replicated out to other domain controllers across the network. So what you do with group policy is Active Directory or network wide. It covers all of your workstations and servers. So in this case, everything's okay. Our group policy updated. If you make a group policy change and you notice, again, you could just commonly you can just run it from here if you want, but you don't really have an opportunity to see the output if something goes wrong. So your choice: launch a command prompt and run GP update first, or just run it from the command line. Make a little shortcut or a batch file. But if you do make group policy changes and you notice that they don't seem to be taking effect, then one of the things that may be wrong is that you forgot to run GP update, and you simply forgot to update the policy. And sometimes, believe it or not, there are quirks where you even have to actually reboot a domain controller for certain policy settings to take effect properly, or for certain changes to take effect that you've made in group policy. But for now, we just want to look at our message settings and our auditing. So let's again go ahead and set up auditing on top secret. And so I'll go to the security tab, edit the ACEs on the DACL. I want to go to advanced. And again, for auditing, I'm going to add the domain local group that my global security group has been added to. Again, we want to follow AGU DLP. So, and I don't remember exactly what it was called, top secret something. Top secret access. So I want to audit anybody who's a member of this group, and I'll audit both success and failure. Now, remember we also had to enable that in the group policy settings, but now we have to enable it here. I'm going to say include inheritable auditing entries for this object's parent. Replace all existing inheritable auditing on all descendants with inheritable auditing entries for this object. Yes, I want to audit anything that's in that directory or a subdirectory or a child object of that. Again, here's the take ownership capability, and if I wanted to, we could, modify or change ownership to, in this case we'll leave it as administrators, but, if we had another group or another user wanted to take ownership there, we could. That's just another capability. Effective permissions, and again, remember the effective permissions tool, we'll just review that, but if I wanted to type in a user, Dr. Evil, even though he surreptitiously and evilly and deceptively falsified information and gained entry into the global security or the domain local group that allows him access. He's a part of a group called evil agents, which is explicitly not trusted. So even though he implicitly has permission to access top secret, he has been explicitly denied, so he can't. So that's just kind of a nice tool there. Remember, we had talked about that before. Remember, let's look at Austin Powers. Notice he has full permissions because of his security group and domain local group membership. But anyway, back to auditing. So we've set up auditing. We're going to click OK. We're going to click OK. And we're going to log out and log in as Austin Powers and check these things out. Let's close our GPMC. And we don't need to save our... It's basically like a bookmark. You're not really saving the policy settings. That you save when you edit. But you are saving the GPMC settings. So let's log out. Group Policy Management Console for those of you who know. Alright, so I'm going to log in. Now notice I have a message. Pirates Top Secret Logon Warning. Welcome to Top Secret of the Domain Pirates. Unauthorized users and enemy agents will be shot for treason. So that's sort of our, but where you would add your company's or your organization's logon message, warning, cautionary statement, or whatever you would like to add. Hi, have a beautiful, wonderful, nice day. Why don't people do that? We should do that. We should all add positive, loving, kind messages to our logon. And I didn't get the password right there. And now we're going to log in as Austin Powers. There's our message. And I'll go ahead and switch. Austin Powers is a complex password. And for Austin Powers, let's go ahead and utilize Windows Explorer. And we'll go over here into my computer. And we'll go to Top Secret. And we'll add something. And we'll change something. Let's go in here. Here was our batch file. Let's edit it. Yeah. I guess I meant to say yeah, baby. Or what is that statement that Austin Powers always makes? So we save some things and just perform some actions here that we want to log in our security log because we have set up auditing for object access. And again, remember that was a two-step process. We have to define it in group policy and use GP update, and then we also have to edit the DACL on the object to set up auditing for that object. So let's log out.
Let's check our log files for evidence of auditing and user activity.
Okay, and we're going to log back in. Again, here's our message. Pirates, top secret logon warning. Welcome to top secret of the domain pirates. Unauthorized users and enemy agents will be shot for treason. And we need to switch users. Let's log back in as administrator. Someone with permission to view the security log files. So domain pirates, administrator, complex password. And now, let's go ahead and go to my computer. And there are several ways to access your event logs and security logs, but one of my favorite ones, just right click on my computer and go to Manage, and in the Management tab, there's my hourglass disappears here. Under Diagnostics, Event Viewer, and let's go ahead and look at Windows Logs. And the specific one category we're interested in is security. Auditing, in this case Object Access, is a security event. And so here we can find all of our logs for our security. Let me pull this back a little bit so you guys can see. But that way, if someone was poking around doing something they shouldn't be, or we got hacked, or we were just interested in tweaking our security, it's a very useful tool. I can figure out, see what was done, the date, the time that it happened, whether a file was accessed or not, if it was successfully read or written to, modified, deleted, changed, if a directory was traversed, and these are all success audits, but in addition, I could generate failure audits. So we'll try that real quick. Let's log out. We'll log in as Dr. Evil. And again, remember Dr. Evil was explicitly denied permission. So his inheritance hierarchy has been frustrated. Haha. He has a simple password. We'll log in as Dr. Evil, and let's generate a failure event when auditing. Yes, I downloaded the beta. Alright. Let's go ahead and create a couple of failure events. So we'll try to do something that we're not allowed to do. So we're going to go here, we're going to go here, and we're not allowed to do that. And we won't use any secondary logon credentials. Let's try to delete this object. And again, we don't have permission to do that. Let's try to go in there one more time. Alright, good enough. Now let's log out, and we'll log back in. And go check our security log again. Okay, and we're going to go use, we'll use my computer shortcut again, Manage. Let's go to Diagnostics. Wait a long time for the hourglass to disappear, at least on this machine. Of course, it's bad enough I don't have state-of-the-art hardware, but I'm also kind of splitting it up between multiple virtual machines. So I guess that makes it even worse. We're not going to blame Windows. We're going to blame my lack of decent hardware. We can look at some of our successes to audit, and let's get on here and look at failures. These are what we're more interested in at this point from a security point of view, our security log. So here we've audited our failures and different types of access. Let's go up here and we pull this back so you can kind of see what's going on. Pull this back some. And we can see the task here. And then notice we have the time when different events occurred and what happened. Here's one for the file system. Let's take a look at the details here. This happened on February the 19th, 2008 at 1:26 p.m. It's a failure audit, and it regards file system access in the computer. In this case, our host, Sarah, and the domain, piratesforest.org. The event ID and a handle to an object was requested. In this case, Dr. Evil tried to read files that he was not allowed to read. For a management console, let's go here. And handle to an object was requested, and again. And there's Windows Firewall. Let's see. Account failed to log on. Let's go down. Alright. Here we go. Here's our Dr. Evil. So Pirate's Dr. Evil had logged in. Now we can track his progress. He logged in on February the 19th, 2008 at 1:24 p.m. and 19 seconds. He tried to access an object and failed for something that he was explicitly denied permission to. The host name and the domain piratesforest.org, hostname Sarah. Dr. Evil, here's his logon ID. Here's what he tried to access, top secret. And here's the program he was using. So if you were doing some nefarious activity or trying to hack our network, this would be a nice tool to be able to track him down and see what he's up to, what he's doing. Of course, we could copy and paste this into our log file if we wanted to. Along with the handle ID, here's the SID. Remember we talked about the RID master, hands out banks of RIDs, and here's this specific security identifier, the ACEs on the DSL for the object he tried to access. So just some of our successes and failures. Auditing, it's a very nice feature with group policy in Active Directory. Very nice security feature indeed.